Welcome to the second virtual Public Information Center for the Baden Trunk Sanitary Sewer Class Environmental Assessment. This study has been initiated by the Township of Wilmot. MTE Consultants has been retained by the Township to serve as the lead consultant on the project, and we will be guiding you through this presentation on behalf of the Township of Wilmot and the study team. This Public Information Center will be published virtually on the Township of Wilmot's website and will remain online for the duration of the project. The goals of our second Public Information Center are to provide a summary of the project to date, identify where we are in the Municipal Class EA process, review the study area, define the existing sanitary design system, summarize the existing natural, social, cultural heritage, built and economical environments, present the wastewater servicing alternatives and their associated impacts, summarize the evaluation of the alternative solutions, identify the preliminary preferred alternative, and to provide a timeline for the study and the next steps. We encourage the general public, Indigenous groups, and stakeholders to review the presentation, provide comments, and/or submit questions on a comment sheet available on the Township's website. Information on how to submit your comments will be provided at the end of the presentation. Your input is appreciated and will be considered by the study team in the evaluation of the alternative solution. The Township of Wilmot has identified that the existing sanitary infrastructure lacks capacity and depth for the planned growth within the settlement of Baden. The proposed sanitary trunk will accommodate current and future growth in the area. The study will determine the corridor servicing alignment, size, and depth of the trunk sewer to facilitate growth and optimize existing township infrastructure in the area. Providing sewage collection to accommodate existing and future growth of Baden will require changes to the current sewage collection system. Under the Municipal Class EA process, establishing, extending, or enlarging a sewage collection system is considered a Schedule B project as defined in the Municipal Engineers Association Class EA document. As a Schedule B project, the project planning proceeds under the planning and documentation procedures of Phase 1 and Phase 2 of the Municipal Class Environmental Assessment process. Through this process, feasible solutions are identified and evaluated with input from agencies, Indigenous communities, and stakeholders toward a recommendation for a preferred solution. At the conclusion of Phase 2, the appropriate EA planning schedule is confirmed, and if no Part 2 order requests are received by the Minister, the proponent may proceed to design and implement the project. An overview of the EA process is illustrated on the flowchart. The study is currently at the stage where we engage with interested parties and the public about the project and the alternative solutions, as highlighted in the yellow box under Phase 2. We are currently midway through Phase 2 of the study. Following the confirmation of the preferred solution, a project file report will be prepared to summarize the decision-making process for the public and stakeholders. Once Township Council has endorsed the preferred alternative, a 30-day review period will be provided for the public and stakeholders to review and comment on the report. The primary study area is located within the settlement of Baden and consists primarily of agricultural and residential land uses, with some commercial and institutional land uses as well. Several development proposals within the study area are in pre-consultation and are at various stages of approval. Key considerations include future development per the Township's official plan, topography, capacity of existing sewer, encroachment on natural features, and planning policy and regulation. The Township, in conjunction with the region, will ensure that all new development is serviced by adequate and effective water, wastewater, and stormwater facilities. The detailed study area defines the boundary for the proposed Baden Trunk alternative alignments. It is defined as the area south of Snyder's Road West, west of Foundry Street to the Baden Wastewater Pump Station, north of Gingrich Road, and east of Christian Street, including the agricultural lands it crosses. All alternative alignments will begin at the intersection of Snyder's Road West and Christian Street, and ultimately connect to the Baden Wastewater Pumping Station. There are 4 prominent water features, existing archaeological find spots, and sensitive vegetation communities within the detailed study area. The settlement of Baden is currently serviced by a 2-tier wastewater system that includes the Township of Wilmot and the region of Waterloo. The township is responsible for the sanitary sewers and the Baden West wastewater pumping station. The region of Waterloo is responsible for the Baden wastewater pumping station. The areas outlined in orange are the current areas serviced by the township. The Baden wastewater pumping station and associated sewer system are under capacity for peak flows and does not support the future growth demands of Baden. The existing Baden Sanitary Sewer Network is comprised of gravity sewers, pressure sewers, trunk sewers, and wastewater pumping stations. Pressure sewers and local gravity sewers connect with the existing sanitary trunk sewers along Foundry Street, where it flows southeast to the Baden wastewater pumping station and ultimately to the New Hamburg wastewater treatment plant. Based on the elevations and locations of existing infrastructure, extended sanitary service to the primary study area would not be achievable by gravity. An assessment of the natural environment was completed to characterize the vegetation communities and the potential for habitat of species at risk. Vegetation communities within the detailed study area and along Alternative 1 were inventoried to assess potential direct and/or indirect impacts to significant and sensitive vegetation species, as well as terrestrial habitat features and functions. Although the vegetation communities within the detailed study area are considered to be relatively common in Ontario, there are vegetation communities of interest. These include forests, woodlands, cultural thicket, and cultural meadow. The significant and sensitive vegetation species identified include the species at risk butternut tree and the regionally significant running serviceberry. Features of concern include locally significant woodlands and non-significant woodlands. Impacts to wildlife habitats, including habitat for species at risk and significant wildlife habitat, were assessed. 2 candidate significant wildlife habitats were identified. They include all wooded areas, which have the potential to provide suitable habitat for species at risk bats, and the Baden Creek Pond, which provides suitable habitat for the species conservation concern snapping turtle and is a possible turtle wintering area. The ecological connectivity associated with the Baden Creek riparian zone provides a potential corridor function for land-based animals. Wetland cover within the study area are limited to small, isolated features that are anthropogenic in nature. Several locally significant wetlands were identified within the detailed study area and along Alternative 1. Though not provincially significant, the locally significant wetlands are considered to be a form of supporting environmental feature. There are 5 main water features within the primary study area. They include Baden Creek, a permanent water course with groundwater inflow, the Baden Creek Tributary A, an ephemeral intermittent stream, the Baden Creek Tributary B, a permanent water course with groundwater inflow, the Huna Ward Drain, a cold water stream, and the Baden Creek Pond. Baden Creek provides direct fish habitat, including suitable spawning, foraging, and rearing habitats for a variety of warm water and cool water fish. All watercourses provide direct fish habitat except Tributary A. Baden Creek provides habitat for a variety of warm water and cool water fish due to groundwater inflow, vegetation cover, and the Huna Ward Drain. The hydrogeologic assessment, based on geologic and geotechnical information, was used to assess impacts to shallow groundwater movement, groundwater recharge areas, and groundwater quality by means of significant groundwater recharge areas, highly vulnerable aquifers, wellhead protection areas, and intake protection zones. No significant impacts to groundwater resources were revealed. Baden is designated as a township urban area according to the Regional Official Plan of 2015. Land use designations within Baden consist of environmentally constrained lands, special policy areas, urban residential, urban core, open space, major recreational, light industrial with general industrial lands to the south, and agricultural lands, which are primarily located outside the urban area within the countryside. Each alternative was assessed for potential land use impacts. The countryside are lands located outside the urban areas. The countryside line, as seen in silver, is the long-term growth boundary between the existing urban area and the countryside. It represents the future urban area boundary to accommodate for projected growth and is consistent with the Provincial Policy Statement of 2020, the Places to Grow Plan of 2020, the amended Regional Official Plan of 2015, and the Township of Wilmot Official Plan of 2019. Stage 1 and Stage 2 archaeological assessments have been performed along the alternatives traversing open fields. The Stage 1 background research indicated the detailed study area exhibited moderate to high potential for the identification and recovery of archaeological resources. Stage 2 investigations consisted of pedestrian surveys at 3-meter intervals and test pits. Archaeological finds require a 20-meter protective buffer and a 50-meter monitoring buffer during construction. Baden has been identified as a potential cultural heritage landscape. As such, a cultural heritage assessment of the primary study area was performed. Of the 11 cultural heritage resources identified within or adjacent to the detailed study area, 7 were listed heritage properties and 4 were designated heritage properties. In addition, Foundry Street and Snyder's Road West have been identified as scenic roads and have been included in the assessment. Adverse impacts were evaluated as designated in the Ontario Heritage Toolkit. All cultural heritage resources identified are included in the Township's Cultural Heritage Register. Five alternative alignments were selected for this study. They consist of Alternative 1, the Do Nothing, which is the 2014 pre-approved alignment, Alternative 2, which requires upgrading the existing sewers down 2 main regional roads, Alternative 3 requires upgrading existing sewers along local and regional roads, Alternative 4 requires upgrading local sewers and installing new sewers within agricultural lands, and Alternative 5, which requires upgrading a local sewer and installing new sewers within agricultural lands. The alternatives were evaluated relative to each other against a set of criteria to meet the project objectives outlined in the Problem Opportunity Statement. Alternative 1 is the Do Nothing alternative. The eastern portion of the alignment begins at the proposed wastewater pumping station, runs southeast along the eastern boundary of the primary study area, then southwest along the railway to Foundry Street. The western portion begins at the intersection of Christian Street and Snyder's Road West, proceeds east to Foundry Street, where it connects with the eastern portion, then southeast to the Baden wastewater pumping station. The Do Nothing alternative is a mandatory requirement for consideration in a Class EA. It examines what may happen if no alternative is selected. In this case, the approved wastewater servicing strategy of 2014 will be carried out. Aside from this alternative being the pre-approved sanitary servicing strategy, the benefits of this alignment are that it does not impact the significant wildlife habitat woodlands or the species that rest butternut trees. It also does not impact any known archaeological find spots. The constraints of this alternative are that it does not support the planned future development of Baden. It hinders timely project completion due to regional road corridors. It greatly disrupts the road network and traffic along Snyder's Road West and Foundry Street, impacting access to existing businesses and residents, as well as the township fire hall. It impacts the largest number of cultural heritage resources during construction. The installation of the trenchless sewer pipes under the railway will be technically complex due to the narrow right-of-way and the various connections at the busy intersection of Snyder's Road West and Foundry Street. The impacts to flow regime at the stream crossings will lead to water quality and water quantity issues affecting the aquatic habitat of Baden Creek, the Baden Creek Pond, and the Hugh Ward Drain. The additional pumping station required for this alternative will increase noise and odor, as well as long-term operation and maintenance costs. The right-of-way to service the eastern portion of the alignment has not been secured and is currently the most costly alternative. Alternative 2 begins at the intersection of Snyder's Road West and Christian Street, proceeds east on Snyder's Road West to Foundry Street, where it continues southeast to the Baden wastewater pumping station. This alternative has negligible impacts to vegetation communities, wildlife habitat, and wetlands. It does not impact any known archaeological find spots. It eliminates the school wastewater pumping station, which reduces the noise, odor, and long-term operation and maintenance costs associated with the pumping station. No land acquisitions are required for this alternative. The constraints of this alternative are that it does not completely support the planned future development of Baden and hinders timely project completion due to the regional road corridors. It greatly disrupts the road network and traffic along Snyder's Road West and Foundry Street, impacting access to the existing businesses and residents, as well as the Township Fire Hall. It will impact a large number of cultural heritage resources during construction. Impacts to flow regime at the stream crossing will lead to water quality and water quantity issues, which will affect the aquatic habitat of Baden Creek, the Baden Creek Pond, and the Hugh Ward Drain. Installation of the trenchless sewer pipes under the railway will be technically complex due to the deep sewer, the narrow railway right-of-way, and the various connections at the busy intersection of Snyder's Road West and Foundry Street. Alternative 3 begins at the intersection of Snyder's Road West and Christian Street, proceeds southeast to Charlotta Street, northeast to Mill Street, southeast to Charles Street, northeast to Foundry Street, then southeast to the Baden wastewater pump station. This alternative has negligible impacts to vegetation communities, wildlife habitat, and wetlands. It does not impact any known archaeological find spots. It eliminates 2 wastewater pumping stations, the school wastewater pumping station and the Baden West wastewater pumping station, which will reduce noise, odor, and long-term operation and maintenance costs associated with the pumping station and the Baden West noise wall. No land acquisitions are required for this alternative. The constraints of this alternative are that it does not completely support the planned future development of Baden and hinders timely project completion due to regional road corridors. It greatly disrupts the road network and traffic along local roads and Foundry Street, impacting access to the existing businesses and residences, as well as the Township Fire Hall. Various cultural heritage resources are also impacted. Impacts to flow regime at the stream crossings will lead to water quality and water quantity issues, which will affect the aquatic habitat of Baden Creek, the Baden Creek Pond, and the Hugh Ward Drain. Alternative 4 begins at the intersection of Snyder's Road West and Christian Street. It proceeds southeast to Charlotta Street, northeast to Queen Street, southeast on Queen Street, along Baden Creek to Gingrich Road, northeast to Foundry Street, and southeast to the Baden wastewater pumping station. This alternative provides flexibility for servicing the entire primary study area and allows for timely project completion due to minimal regional road corridors. It eliminates 2 wastewater pumping stations, the school wastewater pumping station and the Baden West wastewater pumping station, which will reduce noise, odor, and long-term operation and maintenance costs associated with the pumping station and the Baden West noise wall. There are minimal impacts to Baden Creek, the Baden Creek Pond, and the Hugh Ward Drain. It does not impact flow regime due to trenchless stream crossings or to the aquatic habitat of any feature. There are minimal impacts to cultural heritage resources, and the right-of-ways for this alignment have been secured. The constraints of this alternative are that it disrupts the local road network and traffic along Christian Street, Charlotta Street, and Queen Street, impacting access to the existing local residents. It also infringes on the 50-meter monitoring buffer for 2 archaeological find spots and may impact the locally significant wetlands at the Trenchless Railway crossing. Alternative 5 begins at the intersection of Snyder's Road West and Christian Street, proceeds southeast to Charlotta Street, crosses the railway, and runs adjacent to the Baden Creek Tributary A and Baden Creek to Gingrich Road, northeast to Foundry Street, and southeast to the Baden Wastewater Pumping Station. This alternative provides flexibility for servicing the entire primary study area and allows for timely project completion due to minimal regional road corridors. There are minimal disruptions to the road network and traffic and impacts access to existing businesses and residents the least. There are no impacts to cultural heritage resources. It eliminates 2 wastewater pumping stations, the school wastewater pumping station and the Baden West wastewater pumping station, which will reduce noise, odor, and long-term operation and maintenance costs associated with the pumping station and the Baden West noise wall. This alternative does not impact any locally significant wetlands, species at risk, or significant wildlife habitat. There are negligible impacts to Baden Creek, the Baden Creek Pond, and the Huna Ward Drain. It does not impact flow regime due to trenchless stream crossings or aquatic habitat of any water feature. The right-of-ways for this alignment have been secured and represents the least cost solution. The constraints of this alternative is that it disrupts local traffic along Christian Street and a small section of Charlotta Street, which impacts access to existing local residents. It will also require archaeological monitoring within the 50-meter archaeological buffer during construction. The impacts of the alternatives were evaluated against the inventory of the natural, social, cultural, economic, and technical environment, including possible mitigating measures. Each alternative underwent a numerical evaluation. The alternatives were then compared to each other by applying a ranking from the most preferred to least preferred based on the level of anticipated impact for each other. A graphical representation of the numerical evaluation is shown to best illustrate the results of the analysis. A full pie represents the greatest anticipated impact and therefore the least preferred. The empty pie represents the least anticipated impact and therefore the most preferred. The table provides a summary of the evaluation of alternatives as an average range under each environment category. The outcome of the evaluation illustrates that Alternative 5 received the most favorable overall ranking when compared to the other alternatives. Alternative 5 has been selected as the preliminary preferred alignment for the Baden Sanitary Trunk. The alignment will improve current sanitary services to the existing Baden residents, reduce operations and maintenance costs, and provide sanitary services to the future growth areas with minimal impacts to the natural, social, cultural, built, and economic environments. This alternative consists of replacing the local sanitary sewer along Christian Street, installing a new trunk sanitary sewer along Christian Street through the open fields adjacent to the Baden Creek Tributary A and Baden Creek, and upgrading the sewer from the intersection of Gingrich Road and Foundry Street to the Baden Wastewater Pumping Station. A complete reconstruction of Christian Street will be required. The timeline of this study is provided on this slide. Following the comments received from this PIC, the project team will confirm the preferred alternative. The Municipal Class EA process, including the input from the public, agencies, Indigenous communities, and stakeholders, will be documented in a project file report. Once council endorsement is received, the project file report will be made available for public review and comment for a period of 30 days following the notice of completion. At this time, it is anticipated that the notice of completion and the project file report will be available in the winter of 2022. Thank you for participating in the Baden Trunk Sanitary Sewer Class EA Online Public Information Center. Please direct any comments, questions, or suggestions relevant to this study to either Jeff Molyneux with the Township of Wilmot or to Dot Roga with MTE Consultants. This Public Information Center is relying on web-based communications. Please feel free to fill out the comment sheet located on this website. The commenting period for this PIC will extend to Tuesday, October 11th, 2022. All comments received will be collected under the Environmental Assessment Act and, with the exception of personal information, will become part of the public record.